Hi, and welcome to the OrgDev podcast. So, how do you challenge and strengthen the way that leaders think, behave, and act, not only to benefit their own performers, but also of their team, their stakeholders, and ultimately their organization? Roffey Park is a world-renowned centre of excellence for leadership and organisation development. And for over 75 years, it's been at the forefront of research and equipping managers and practitioners for the challenges and opportunities that organisation life brings. So who better to invite onto the OrgDev podcast than Dr. Arlene Egan, the CEO of Roffey Park herself? Arlene brings a wealth of experience to Roffey Park with 25 years experience working in consultancy, OD, leadership, learning, and management development. And she's got a passion for learning, leadership, and transformation. Her extensive experience delivering development excellence spans executive education, higher education, sport, and local government sectors, both in Ireland and internationally. I believe she's off to Qatar very shortly as well. She advises on organizational performance and culture and identifies the right learning environment to promote engagement and development within organizations. Her extensive work experience is underpinned with a PhD from University College London in psychology for her work in designing, implementing, and evaluating initiatives to enhance critical thinking, which is going to be a part of our conversation today. Her PhD was built on top of her master's in sports psychology, which gives her a unique perspective on the link between thinking and performance and how the application of sports psychology can happen in our organizations. Now, she also has a book called Confidence in Critical Thinking. Danny's modeling the book that she's absolutely devoured and is on a mission to make sure that all of our clients understand this really clearly and just some of the big learning points in it as well. So Arlene, it's a real pleasure to have you join us on a Friday afternoon. Thank you for making time.
Thank you very much. Just one point of correction on that amazing introduction, which I am glad is recorded, so I can play that back. University College Dublin, not London. My Dublin colleagues will be so quick to come in and fix that.
It says Dublin. I don't know. I have London on my mind, but this is brilliant.
I think it's just because I'm there so often. I'm practically a native. So
thank you. Well, it's great to have you join us.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you with us. Thank you. Just to start us off, just tell us a bit about your role at Roffey. What does being CEO involve? How does that keep you?
Keeps me busy for sure. So I took up the role of CEO over 2 years ago, but I had been with Roffey Park for about 3 years before that. And really, my role is to bring Roffey Park Institute through its current journey of transformation. And I think that's the sweet irony of the work that we do at Roffey Park, because we help so many other organizations through their own journeys of transformation that, it's good to step back and realize that organizations such as Roffey Park, we also have to go through this change and evolution, so to say that we can identify with our clients in terms of the pain of change and challenge, we're absolutely at one with clients. But really in my role, it's about bringing to I suppose different client groups the news about Roffey Park, to tell more people what we do as an organization, and of course, in my leadership piece, it's to set the direction of the organization for the next number of years. So our 3-5-year strategy, as we're just setting at the moment, and so my role is wonderful. It's diverse. I get to work internally on the really cool strategic ideas and setting that direction. But I also get to work directly with clients who we really value and hold in great esteem. Our clients are all around the world, and I guess to work with them. Sometimes we have a team, obviously, that work with them more regularly, but every so often I'm allowed out. I'm allowed into the rooms with them too, and that's great for me, because that's ultimately where I came from.
Roffey does so much, but for a lot of the OD community, it holds quite a special place in the hearts of the OD community for a lot. What makes it so special? Why do people have that kind of affinity with it?
Yeah, well, the heritage of Roffey Park is so strong. So, as you mentioned, it's over 75 years old. Started back in the 1940s. The idea started a little earlier than the actual organization itself. But ultimately the need was identified after World War II, when the soldiers came back from the war. that these individuals needed help. You know, many of them weren't professional soldiers. They were businessmen, they were farmers, they were factory workers, and they were sent to war. The trauma of war, the disruption that the war caused, obviously changed workplaces and changed life at systemic levels. And the idea that Roffey Park was based on was, you know, how do we get these leaders and managers back into the workplace? How do we rehabilitate them after the trauma of war and help them to see and understand the new world as it exists and their part in that? And, you know, so this was, you know, a massive organizational development project, you know, way back in the 1940s. And Roffey Park Institute was, you know, synonymous with trialing and experimenting with many different kinds of approaches that can help both individuals and organizations to adapt and to change and to assimilate into the world as it was presenting itself. And so the OD piece is, you know, it's that experimental piece. It's, you know, it's the vision to be bold. It's the vision to ask questions about the workplace and to challenge aspects of the workplace as well as appropriate. But it's, you know, it's that real idea that we're not going to settle with something that's just not working for people, or that's toxic, or, you know, that's not effective. And we're going to really look at the impact that different kinds of workplaces have on those individuals that work within them. And so it flipped, if you like, the paradigm of organizations kind of on its head in a way. And obviously from this very strong root and very strong heritage, you know, we have been the home of OD for decades. You know, we run a flagship master's program in OD and people that attracts an amazing cohort of international students every year. And, you know, it's really important to us, that ethos is very important to us, because we still today believe in, you know, really delivering what matters to organizations, depending on where they find themselves.
And do you see a common theme in the organizations that are coming to work with you, the challenges they're working?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, I'm talking about the 1940s and the trauma in the world. And, you know, we think about 2024 and the trauma in the world. You know, it's our work, unfortunately, it's very cyclical. So we can't change those bigger fundamental challenges that the world keeps having to face in terms of trauma and disruption at a very human level, you know. But this impacts businesses, you know. So what we are seeing is, you know, we have the pandemic, we have war. We are seeing organizations really have to work out who they are, what they're evolving into, who are they serving, what kind of people, you know, are they trying to attract in terms of talent and retain also, and an eye to the future as well. So it's a very, very complex time for organizations. We know that it's a very unstable economic situation as well. We're seeing big brands close every week, you know, those massive brands having to close their doors or shed their workforces. So the biggest trends we're actually having is this, you know, it's the quest for organizations to get some stability in, but, you know, helping them through the change process so that they can understand how to become more stable, or how to become just a little bit more predictable. Because, yeah, the big lesson is that change is not coming to an end right now. You know, we are in constant states of evolution, and it's really helping organizations to manage that and bring their people with them as well. And obviously an eye to leadership too, to make sure that the right leadership is there to guide this process.
Obviously, one of the things about Roffey Park is it is a beautiful residence, like it's on its own grounds, and it's one of the things that people really enjoy. But obviously, and I imagine that's part of the rehabilitation of taking people away and giving them a different kind of environment to work in as well. And Danny, you've actually studied at Roffey Park and really enjoyed the experience.
Yeah, I've been there a couple of times on different programs and adored my experience.
Yeah, how has Roffey Park sort of evolved in how it delivers its services and how it actually engages people? Because I imagine that online is now an element of how you deliver things, and also in country, because you're also an international organization, aren't you?
Yeah. So I always remember the day. I wasn't the CEO. I was a member of the senior team, and it was a couple of years back. I wasn't that long in Roffey Park at the time. And the CEO at the time sat us all down in a room and said, right, we're going to do something digital. So, Arlene, I want a digital strategy. We have to deliver something online, and you'll have 5 years to get this sorted out. Now, I was like, 5 years. Are you nuts? There's no way that we can possibly get, what we do at Roffey Park is very, very deep personal work. How do you move this online? So I thought he was daft in 5 years. That wasn't long enough for this. I think we had about 3 months before the pandemic hit, and we had 3 weeks to work this out, and sometimes a burning platform is an amazing way to mobilize people into action and actually really understand the capability and the willingness within an organization. Obviously, it's not something we want as a sustainable thing. We don't always want to be fighting fires. But, when I think about that time and how the level of experimentation, the level of innovation, the level of collaboration that we had across the organization, because we just had to stay 15 minutes ahead of our clients. We were hanging up on people. We couldn't share a screen, and, you're trying to be slick and sophisticated. This was so new to us. And yet our clients were going, okay, thank God, Roffey Park. Now, we were like 10 minutes ahead of our clients at that stage, But, it's all in your execution in terms of your confidence of delivery. What that has done for us, though, is it has meant that Roffey Park has been able to get into other regions. I remember one of the richest stories at the time. We were getting a little bit better. Yeah, we're quick learners. We're getting a little bit better. And we started to offer programs for free online because we wanted to help, everyone in COVID, right? Or organizations, those who wanted to help people. And we wanted to help. So we put out these webinar type programs, which we started calling Navigator, to help you to navigate your way through this. We were able to see people from around the world that we would never have been able to get in touch with before, under normal circumstances. They weren't part of our client base. And we were about to start running a program. So it was an afternoon session, and it was probably something on, communication on Teams in a virtual world. It was those kinds of topics. And we got an email in from one of the registered participants to say, can you hang on? We are waiting for a few more people from our village before we can turn on the computer, And it turned out that this was a village in India where people had gathered around the one computer. And, to fire this up was a bit of a process, but they all wanted to sit and learn, And now you're thinking, wow, without this, without having, thought like this, or the need to think differently about how we deliver what we do, we would never have even thought that these communities existed and even cared about what Roffey Park was talking about, So it was amazing how this, again, really unfortunate burning platform meant that we actually found a way to be able to reach and help more people through that and ultimately influence our business model. I don't see us going back. We're never going to turn off the virtual side. Obviously, we're a hybrid now. But that's never going away. And so the business model changed. We have participants now from parts of the world that we would have only dreamt to be able to talk to participants from. And the value of this, of course, is we get to understand more about organizations and their needs in different areas. So it's been quite an amazing journey for us, but one that started off with a very planned approach, which I had no idea how to solve, to, right, this is the problem, go fix, and like many other organizations, we found a way through.
And there's something about bringing people with it. You mentioned it at the beginning, bringing people along and helping people feel like a sense of agency in that fast change and the complexity, rather than just putting their heads down going, this is too complicated, this is too hard. So what do you do to kind of help people have that sense of agency when faced?
Well, it's a great question, Danny. And it's funny because we asked that question in the backdrop of what we call change fatigue, which I'm sure all of your OD people will be aware of. This idea of not more change. And it's a balance between helping people to understand why the change is necessary. And leaders are notoriously bad for going at such speed and having the logical plan in their heads that they kind of assume that, well, if I'm saying this, you should know I've thought this through. So just come on, people, while they're sitting there going, but I don't understand. And the further, removed you are from that leadership team, the less likely you are to have any clue about what the logic is in terms of the actions that we have, you know. And so this sense of agency is enhanced when people know what's going on, know why we're doing what we're doing, and have a little bit of say or input into creating this in the first place. And I'm not saying everything has to be by consensus, absolutely not. But for bigger change initiatives, sometimes though the influencers in the organization are not the leadership team. They are champions across the organization who get what's happening, and actually they can bring more people with them than the leadership team ever could. So that's, you know, part of that piece around agency and leadership and change. But people are quite tired of it too, and, you know, understandably so.
Yeah, because I think you see with a lot of leaders, they sit with the problem for so long, don't they? They sit with it for 3, 6, 12, 18 months, and then you share it with people. And there's an assumption that you will quickly get it in a town hall meeting if the town hall meeting is presented well. But there is a process that people go through in order to sort of challenge those, because you're doing that kind of transformation. There's fundamental mental models about how people perceive the world, and their version of reality is being completely, and that takes time, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And, you know, the thing about especially your senior leadership or your CEO, their job is to have that view. You know, they have to be able to look across and out and down, you know, and so, you know, people often talk about CEO is very lonely. The CEO will spend quite a lot of time at their heads. They probably don't get the luxury to spend that much time as they would have, let's say, pre-pandemic, or, you know, where the economy is threatening the business. They have to move quicker. But it's that place because you're trying to connect the dots. And if I change this here, what's the implication here? And that is your job as the CEO. You know, you are the one who's tasked with having that view, but you're also the one that's tasked with bringing the team with you to help make whatever changes need to happen. So, you know, the hero CEO, it's not a useful piece, you know, it's just not, because you find the CEO, you know, riding off into battle, you know, probably on a 3-legged horse because they couldn't, you know, pause to get one that actually was fit and healthy for this. And, you know, you've got this, you know, people behind you go, what are they doing? Like, you know, so you've got to start bringing people with you on this change journey. And there's a couple of things, you know, this is the critical thinking aspect. This is what leaders need to be better at. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Can I, you know, is there a good reason for this? Yes, I might not have all the answers, but if I take this step, you know, what is it going to do? Sometimes a leader's job is to make a decision. That's it. You know, we could never look into the crystal ball, you know, and go, yeah, okay, magic 8 ball. Should I not? You know, we don't have those tools. It's often in hindsight that we look back. But understanding the data that I have right now in this minute, what's it telling me? Having people, for a CEO, having people around you that you trust to be honest with you. You know, if you open your mouth and everybody else just stops talking, they're not a useful team for you. They're not the people that can advise you because they're either scared of you, or they don't respect you in some ways, or there's something else happening. You need people to go, I'm not sure about that, or have you considered that, or yes, that sounds fine. However, But having a silent team around you, you know, you've got to question what's going on there. So this is where the critical thinking part comes in. What can happen in times of crisis is that we can default to our quick strategies that we might use to solve simple problems, whereas actually we could be trying to tackle a complex problem, and that requires us to think in a different way. So, you know, will CEOs get it right? Half the time, you know, no more than anyone else. But what level of thinking and what data are we paying attention to along the way? And how willing are we to pivot and change along that journey at those points that can help us to get further down the road? This is all part of the critical thinking mindset that a CEO has to develop and get confident with.
So is that what drove you to kind of your inspiration for the book then? Is that what kind of led you down that route?
Yeah, a little bit. It was interesting because when I wrote that book, I was actually in academia, where I spent a good number of years. And what I realized listening to students who, you know, are getting prepared for the world of work, and this, you know, it doesn't really matter what education system we're talking about, but the context was in the Irish context. And I was queuing for something, some service, and there was a student beside me, and a first year, and they were at a desk And the question they asked was about 5 minutes long without an actual question in it. Right? And I was standing there going, this person needs help, but they don't even know what they need or how to communicate what they need. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, how does this work? Like, here we are trying to prep these guys for the world of work, and they've come to us at the age of 18 or 19, and they can't ask a question to help them get something that they need. Something is wrong here. And so when I started to think about this, and I was also doing some work around this in my PhD, this idea of knowing how to ask questions and not being afraid to ask questions. This is actually a really human skill that we don't value enough. I think I report in the book, but one of the most interesting statistics, my favorite statistics in the book, is that like 4-year-old girls ask the most questions. Western girls, they are the most curious people, and they'll just ask you why until somebody goes, because I said so, and then that shuts it down. That natural curiosity goes away as we get older, for many reasons. And then we go, okay, well, these people are going into the world of work, and we wonder why they can't, be productive, or where's their confidence, or, how are they developing themselves? How are they thinking about this? I can't ask a question to get something that I need for my university. How am I going to ask a boss about my performance? Or can I do something different? Or I have a way of doing this task. What about this? It's not disconnected. These are key skills. And so that was a lot of the inspiration for the book. It was, let's just create a book that people can go through, pick up some tools that if they just tweak. And again, you mentioned my sports psychology background. When we talk about thinking and we talk about performance, it's always simple things. If I did one thing this little bit better, it could make a massive difference, and I don't have to think too hard about it. So that was really the inspiration for the book. How can we just make life a little bit easier for people, make better decisions, have better conversations, and think about themselves in a different way?
As the father of 2 girls under 6, I can validate that data. That is absolutely correct.
Well, enjoy it, because it goes away.
So I was going to say, where would you suggest people start? So if you've got a leader looking at a team thinking, we're not great at critical thinking, we need to build on that. Where would you get people to start?
Yeah, so I suppose start by really understanding what critical thinking means. And there's that beautiful misdefinition of critical thinking as being the person that is just going to contradict anything that's said or nitpick. That's not what critical thinking is. Critical thinking is actually using the right thinking for the situation you find yourself in. And that's an important definition, because it comes back to when we're stressed, stretched, or challenged. It's likely that we use the shortcuts in life. As humans, we're built for efficiency. So we do, as it might not feel that at work, but we do as little as possible to move ourselves along in this world. That's how we operate. So in those situations where we're dealing with complex problems, a simple process that we use to solve easy, that's not going to be the best thing for us, So understanding how we make our decisions, how we evaluate our data, what do we look for that's important? The definition of madness, the doing the same thing and expecting different results. This is a direct result of not actually applying critical thinking, because there's an assumption that, well, if let's try it one more time and we'll just see. I see this with many organizations. We've been doing this for years and it hasn't been working. Okay, so let's think about that, shall we? It's asking questions. One of the most, like in terms of successful organizations and what I would say about their makeup, organizations where questions are welcome at every level, they are the organizations that can actually have an edge. So whether that's in competition, whether that's in market analysis, whether that's in your leadership skills and capabilities, but that culture that supports a question. And if somebody in your organization is saying, why are we doing that? It's because you haven't told them. So they don't know. So it's actually a really good question. Now, if they agree with you or disagree with you, that's a whole other issue. Okay, that's something else. But organizations that actually encourage and respond in a meaningful way to questions, that's key. If your senior team aren't asking questions, we have a problem. You know, if they take everything as given, there's a problem. So it's much more around evaluating the kinds of questions that we're asking, the kinds of data that we're using for decision making. How often are we reviewing performance? Do we look back and actually go, that worked well? If we were doing this again, I might change my process, I might do something a little bit differently. How are we evolving and how are we continuing to learn? And that's what I'd say from an organizational perspective. From a leadership perspective, if a leader isn't carving out time, and I mean this, you know, managers as well, I know sometimes the terms can be different, but if you have a responsibility to people, process, and you're not taking a little bit of time out in your week to go, how am I doing? You're not engaging the practice of critical thinking. You know, that, and this is where it starts. It starts with me. It starts with my practice, and it goes out that way. So, you know, there's many things that we could do. Again, easy things that can just help us make a qualitative difference to our thinking.
Yeah. And when we actually practice it, generally people are quite capable at it. It's the developing the discipline, isn't it? There's some really interesting research by Derek Cabrera, and he was talking about that people don't naturally take perspectives.
Yeah.
But when they do, they actually can take perspectives really, really well. So how do you sort of create that environment where people are more likely to be explicit in critical thinking, where it is actually kind of encouraged?
Yeah. So there's a few things that can be done. And you know, even in Roffey Park, you know, I'll do this with the team. If I feel that we're stuck, you know, like that, you're going headlong and you're in some kind of a tunnel, I'll bring in somebody outside that will challenge us, you know, that will get us to lift our heads up and go, okay, but why are you thinking like that? What else could be going on? What might those people say? What might that stakeholder group say? Because all of a sudden you start to look around again, you shake yourself off and you go, yeah. Now, if you come to the same conclusion, you go, okay, we're pretty confident, you know, let's keep going. But if something else tweaks, you can kind of go, okay. So in terms of perspective, you know, and again, stress, stretch, or challenge, we can find it very hard to take the risk to ask the questions if we're in the right direction, because God forbid we have to now turn, right? And we have to go a different way. However, isn't it better to find that out earlier and make the alteration rather than just persisting to the end with every odds, all the odds stacked against you? So, you know, being able to have and we talk about this quite a lot, not only at Roffey Park, but I'm definitely seeing it as one of the key trends for organizations this year, your network, you know, your community, those people that you can talk to and go, this is what I'm thinking. Am I right? You know, what am I missing in this? And the best thing you can do for that person is to start asking them questions, you know, it's to help them. It's nearly like that coaching culture we talk about. It's to use coaching questions to help to see or to check whether their perception and their perspective is in the right place or if they're missing something. So again, simple to use. A couple of really powerful questions can trigger something that's going to make all the difference in people. So if you're not able to do this yourself with confidence, then who is it that's in your success team that you can have that cup of coffee with and go, this is where I am, this is where I'm thinking, talk to me about my own head and ask me a couple of questions so I can check and just see if there's something that I'm missing. But even with the students and in the book, and from my own research, looking for alternatives, the effort it takes for people to go, is there another way? You know, it's nearly like, you know, do I have to look for another way because I'm pretty convinced that I'm right, you know? That is the one aspect of critical thinking that takes the most effort because we don't really like to do it. We like to skip over that bit and go, okay, I have a plan. I've thought it through. I know what my conclusion should be. I'm on that journey. It's to pause and go, okay, I think I have a plan. Am I missing something? Can I just check over here? Is there a better way? So we don't always have that luxury, but it's a really, really important question. You know, it's from a business, it's looking at your competitors, you know, what are they doing? What are they saying? The people that will not buy from me, why won't they buy from me? What would we have to do to get those customers in? The staff that are leaving, why are they going? You know, it's that kind of nitty gritty stuff that data can really, really help to change the quality of, I think.
And I think you encapsulate it really nicely in the book, because you talk, one of the things you talk about is counter argument identification, saying think past the first idea.
Yeah.
And I think if we had that as a motto for so many of the organizations and teams that we see, think past the first idea would really stick for me.
Brilliant. And you've had such an interesting career today. So what has been your journey? Because obviously you hold multiple roles: CEO, author, researcher, practitioner. What has been your journey to this point?
Yeah, well, it's been, I think the term that the OD community now use is squiggly line career. I think that's it. So certainly at the age of 14, I did not ever say when I grew up, I would like to be CEO of Roffey Park Institute. I was going to be something much more glamorous and adventurous than that back then, I'm quite sure. So here we are today. So yeah, the journey was tricky, was interesting, I guess. I was an athlete as I was growing up. I was very much into sports. But actually I fell ill when I was a teenager, and that really, talk about perspective shifts, you know. The illness that I had actually forced me into a wheelchair for 2 years and things like that. When you're in this situation where you've gone from being able to do everything for yourself to actually being confined in some way, shape, or form, you have to think around your world. You have to flex and adapt and find a way that's going to have you achieve different kinds of goals in different kinds of ways. So I was young enough to be able to manage that. And for a few years, I really, really got interested, as nerdy as this sounds, I got interested in how the mind does this, you know, rather than me just giving up or quitting or, you know, going off to the corner. That wasn't going to solve my problem. So, you know, this, and I suppose this was what introduced me. I wouldn't have known the term at the time, but it introduced me into this mindset piece, you know, and this dynamic kind of realization around, you know, actually we have agency. Even in our darkest moments, we have agency. And how do you mobilize that at times when you actually just don't want to do anything, you know? So part of that experience, you know, really got me into the sports psychology, because again, you know, I was an athlete, played a number of sports at very high level. That when that gets taken away from you, you know, you just get curious, you know, and I think that this is where the critical thinking started as well. I also was very blessed, very fortunate to have a group of friends that were very high performing athletes. And I got to start to see them in a new light and see how they thought. You know, some of these attended Olympic Games, and, you know, you're like, God, you know, I find that interesting, the way you solve that problem. And I find it interesting the way you think about your performance in that way. So I was really captivated by this topic of thinking and performance. And so very fortunate to be able to get into UCD, to study sports psychology, then to go on to develop a framework for critical thinking, because I was able to put these two pieces together. And you go, yeah, how does your thinking affect your performance? And how do we get in our own way? And that's always fascinating to me. And then I moved into the world of L&D. I started my own business for a while, got to work with amazing clients in that space, got into the world of L&D, working with different kinds of communities of learners. So, you know, everything for me every day. And I think that's why I really love the role that I have, and all the roles I've ever held. I learn something every day. I mean, I come out smarter than when I woke up that morning. You know, that's amazing. Not everybody gets to feel that, but I do, because everyone I get to meet teaches me something. You know, it sparks something in me. And so, you know, I started a learning and development function in an international animation studio, and that was just phenomenal, because that staff community, they learn a completely different way than somebody who's in a bank. You know, you've got to flex, you've got to think critically about, how do I deliver the best for these people, and how am I doing in this role? And so, you know, finding my way into the exec education space and the consultancy pieces. Again, you get to do deep dives with clients, and you learn so much. And ultimately, it got me to where I am today, which I'm very grateful for.
Brilliant. And I just one question that I think is probably really useful, because a lot of practitioners watch this, and a lot of those practitioners are supporting senior leaders, and you occupy, you have a foot in both worlds.
Mhm.
Obviously having all that insight and knowledge, but then moving into the seat itself.
Yes.
What do practitioners need to know, or what do they get wrong about supporting senior leaders?
What did they get wrong? Oh, that's an interesting question. It's funny. I actually think that the practitioners, I think they know a lot about the senior leaders, that the senior leaders think they're not leaking. Okay. It's a big thing that senior leaders have, that they're not leaking anything negative. People will know that, people will see that I'm in control. People will see that I'm healthy and I'm honest, and yes, they can see the baggies and the coffee cups, it's like you're leaking. So I think leaders, and one thing is about those practitioners that are really effective, is that they give the leaders, again, that time and space to kind of go, I could do with a little bit of help here. The concept of leadership has changed, but not all leaders have embraced the freedom that the new concept of leadership has given, which is, the pandemic has shown us leaders don't need to know the answer to everything. Okay, that's what the pandemic said. They said, there is some kind of a solution here. Go and see if you can find out what will work for your organization. Leaders had to rely on other people. They had to look outside their organizations. They had to take help from other sources where they may have been used to doing it for themselves. So what OD practitioners, it is about offering the right support to leaders, depending on where they are in their journey, whether that's psychologically, leaders all have bad days, right? And, people will argue about the concept of imposter syndrome, but sometimes leaders will get overwhelmed by challenge. They might not have a clear view. When a leader can't see a way, they will panic, because that's, as we said, that's their job. They have that view, and if they can't see through the fog or the clouds, that is when somebody the skills to go, let's just sit down and think critically about this. This is the best form of help we can get. Or that idea of, just sit down and talk to me. Just tell me what's going on, because a leader will be really selective in terms of who they are confiding in, who they trust, who they want to let peek behind that curtain, and they should be careful about that. But they do need to vent, because until the robots come in and take over the leadership positions, we still have humans there. And we do need to be very mindful that leaders, no more than anyone else, need holistic support. So if a leader can lead well across all of the domains of life, you're going to have a better workforce. You're going to have a healthy, sustainable workforce. If they are not looking after themselves in a domain, you could be an amazing strategist, but you could be really bad at relationships. It's not going to help you in your role. So how can you help leaders to think in that more holistic way? That's becoming a very important role for OD practitioners.
When you look back at your career so far, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned?
Biggest lessons I have learned. The biggest one is to be able to, I don't mean laugh at myself, but I can certainly giggle at things that I do. Some of the mistakes I have made, they've never been, I don't work in a life in that situation, so it's never been that. But sometimes just things you do, if you cannot giggle at yourself in this role, you are missing a trick, because you'll do something bizarre every day. And learning how to do that, and we talked about perspective, again, is one of our critical thinking skills. I remember when I started my role, and being publicly facing, and I used to lecture to students. Oh God, I like the stomach pains, the cramps. I'd be bent over, I can't get through this. Like, I was unbelievable basket case. Don't ask me to speak. Don't put me in front of a group. And now, now I'm able to go into a group and I can crack a joke with them. I can put them at ease. I can be very human. I can trip over, a step no more than anyone else can, and get myself up just off, and we keep going. Things are going to happen, very human things are going to happen that I used to punish myself for back in the day, that you're now like, oh, guess what I did today? And it's not a being clumsy or deliberate. It's actually just recognizing the human in me and going, yeah, that was funny. I hope it doesn't happen again. It's okay. And so being able to bring that sense of lightness to your leadership, that is something that was that I have learned over the years, and just to not take everything as being so dramatic in terms of things. And I also learned, and this has been a more recent one, and I'm sure you're all very aware, and your audience will be all very aware of the statistics, but it's the realization that if you look at Zoom or Teams and you look at the statistics that say people spend most time looking at themselves on these things, okay? You extrapolate that out, I could give compelling arguments and speeches. Who's listening, right? I mean, who's actually listening to this? And again, I used to beat myself up because I'd have forgotten a line or I'd have fluffed something and it was so serious. They're not even listening to me. Yeah, maybe dipping in and out, so being able to put yourself in perspective, in terms of the role, that's been really, really useful in terms of the big lessons. My success team, which I know might be a corny term, but I couldn't survive without my success team. And my success team comprise a combination of key people, family, like even as we speak today, I am doing this podcast from my parents' house. Don't live with them, just a caveat. I don't have my own house. But I do love to come down because they bring me in a cup of tea and they give me little treats, and it just helps on those days where you feel low. It's just lovely to feel that sense of care. So I've got, very, very good network of family and friends, but I also have a really, really great business mentor team around me who do this out of the goodness of their hearts to help me. And in return, I will mentor other people. But that success team, and it's key as a leader, saying, I need to keep evolving and keep learning. That has been one of the biggest lessons. I took up the CEO role. I'd never been a CEO before. I can imagine day one was quite a day. What does one do here, But I had a team already prepped around me, that just kind of helped me to think things through, get myself going. And they are the ones who challenge me regularly, so don't get comfortable in your roles. Always think about what is next for me. How can I improve? The big lesson I learned was you can only control that which is within your own hula hoop, right? Which is just you. That is what I have control over, me. So my performance, my mood, the way I show up, the work I do, the contribution I give. And so, it's to check that regularly. It's nice when you hear somebody else come back and go, oh, I was there and I thought this was great. You said this was lovely. That means so much because you know that you're reaching people. And ultimately, that's what I'm in this role for. I want to be able to make a difference in the lives of others. And that's great. And again, for me, it's to be clear on why I'm doing what I'm doing. What is it that's actually meaningful for me? And I think as I get older, that becomes a little bit clearer and it becomes more important. Am I in the role where I can do my best work here, which is to inspire and make a difference in the lives of others? That's why I think I'm here, and to be able to check in on that. So certainly my top 3 lessons are: don't take myself so seriously, rely on the wisdom of others to help me get better, and to make sure that I am being true to the purpose that I believe in for myself.
One question we like to ask everybody is, how do you invest in your own learning and development? What does that look like for you currently?
Yeah, so I take that very seriously, actually. And I do, sad, I do a little bit of needs analysis of me every so often. So I'm very fortunate in the organization that with Roffey Park, I get feedback from all levels of the organization regularly. I have strong relationships with my teams, and they know when I say, what do you think? Or tell me what I need to do, or how can I help you more? They will tell me. And I really, really value that, because that's what makes us all better. So and that's a brave thing to do as a leader. You've got to get over that. If you ask the question, you've got to be grown up enough to get the answer. Okay. So that's something that I do. I also am very conscious of my evolution. So regularly I will check in with, and whether it's online courses, like I have a few platforms that I just love to spend time on. So, and it helps that those programs just kind of help me to make sure, again, as we were talking about purpose, or maybe there's something new in terms of thinking, or, I'm very interested as well in the entrepreneurial mindset, because I think that as businesses evolve and change, that having that agility of mind that entrepreneurship often has, so I like to be able to see leadership from multiple perspectives. So I spend time, whether it's reading or whether it's learning, I'm very keen that every week there's a portion of time that is just about me being better so I can do better, right? Not for me, so I can do better for the role, and again, for those that I need. And then I have my mentors, and my mentors I have, that are working with me, again, blessed to have them, very grateful for their time and the gifts. But they cover different things. So some will cover, business, others will cover brand, others will cover confidence. They're talking to me about specific things because, it is to treat the whole person. So, I have an amazing network, and I'm always trying to grow it, not just for me, for my benefit. I love to be able to connect to new people, but also to find opportunities. If I can help, I'm always happy to do that as well. If somebody said, you have something that could benefit me, I'm really, really happy to do that too. And often you learn more helping someone else. You get to think about yourself in a different way. So, I've never met a leader who's arrived. They may think they have, but they haven't. I've never met that person. And so I really believe that as a leader, you're evolving until the day you decide, I'm not going to be a former leader anymore. You have growth to do. And I do take that very seriously.
As CEO of Roffey Park, you seem like the right person to ask this question of. But what advice would you give someone considering starting a career in organisation development, or just taking their first steps? And these people could either be in HR and frustrated with the way things are happening in their organisations. They could be in the operation and going, and there must be another way. What advice would you give to people to give that first possible start?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's funny because I've met so many people that are actually doing OD work, but they don't have the frame or the language to understand that that's what they're doing, and so for, obviously if you ask any practitioner, they'll tell you what they love most and the challenges that they have. But it's really around understanding how organizational development can make a difference, and if you are aligned to that purpose, and that's always the starting point, because if you're going to find the work interesting, if you believe in the ultimate objective of organizational development, then you're more likely to find your way through. Every job has bits that you're going to really enjoy and bits that you might not feel so confident in, but it's that end goal, isn't it? It's about, or developing organizations so that the people in there can flourish, so that the clients can get a better service. If this is what you're interested in, then it's worth exploring. But again, maybe you're doing some of this stuff. Maybe, you already have a little bit of this under your belt, and you just need to think in a different way about this formal practice, because then you'll have the language, or you'll have the framework, so you'll have the models, and you'll have a different way of thinking about it in a different context and reference point. But if you are passionate, passion is important. If you are passionate about how you can influence organizations to do better, then it's, start having a conversation with someone in the field. Best way to do it is to hear live stories, from other practitioners. Join networks, listen to podcasts like this, get a sense of it from people who are there, and go, can you see yourself doing this work? Does this resonate with you? And, that's the first step, is that curiosity piece. That is the first step, is to become curious.
Well, Arlene, I want to say a huge thank you. You've been incredibly engaging, articulate. You've really given us a look into the different worlds in which you inhibit, and hopefully it's given people lots of thoughts in terms of critical thinking and the way in which Roffey Park can support your career. I guess, Danny, for you, what's one thing that you're going to take away from the conversation today? I know we've got many, but what would you want to think?
Many things. But I think the thing that stood out for me is the importance of creating a culture where questions are welcome at every level of the organisation. I think if you can start there and make that happen, that's really going to do something quite magical.
I think for me, there's so much as well. But I said the importance of humour. Yeah. The amount of times I've actually worked with aspiring senior leaders, and they're not quite sure what to do because the organisation hasn't said, but they all assume that they should be serious now because they're senior. But that is the thing that it hasn't got them there. So it's so important, isn't it? And it gives you resilience to deal with whatever comes your way, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, completely. And, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. And, it's the lightness. And if you can do that for yourself, if you can be forgiving and compassionate with the mistakes you make, you will be like that with other people, because other people in your organization are going to make mistakes. And again, like, we're not talking life and death here, talking everyday stuff that impacts the culture immensely when people can feel that they have the freedom to go, I tried something and it didn't work. I am sorry. However, this is what I've learned, and for a leader to go, right, I take your lessons and we move on. It's important to be able to do that. So it's the lightness of leadership, I call it.
Brilliant. We had some feedback on the podcast every day. So they want us to do long form, like really long interviews with people. I feel that we could do a very long interview with you in terms of like all the different things that you're doing. If people want to follow your work, if they want to access your book, and we'll provide a link to all of these things in the show notes as well. But how can people follow work? And if they're interested and curious about how Roffey Park can support them in their development as a practitioner or as a leader, where would you signpost them to?
Yeah, absolutely. So please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm active on LinkedIn, and I really welcome followers, and more than happy to have discussions as well. So that's kind of the easiest point. It's very easy to contact me. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? As in, even on the website, like, direct contact details are readily available. Visit the Roffey Park. It's roffeypark.com. Visit the website. You'll get to see the different kinds of services that we have. And obviously if there's something specific, you'll be put in touch with the right people there. But we have free events every second month for people to come along to that, are OD focused. We just love meeting people. We're a people business. Anything that you like, we are more than happy to talk about with you, especially whether it's to do with your practice or the organizational works that you're doing at the moment.
Brilliant. And we're in 54 countries. You're an international organization, so you don't have to be in the UK to contact you. You can be further afield, can't you?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Arlene. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much. We know you're extremely busy. You just flown back yesterday. So thank you for coming on. You're now a very welcome addition to our brilliant portfolio of practitioners from around the world. It's an absolute delight. If you have enjoyed this, what we'd love you to do is if just leave a like and even subscribe to the channel if you feel it's been useful. And if you've got any ideas about potential guests or potential areas you'd like to explore, then please do let us know. But first and foremost, thank you so much, Arlene. It's been absolutely brilliant. We've really loved the conversation, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.